What's up, gamers? We're back at it again at the Krispy Kreme. Players flipped a table and threw a chair because the GM revealed that the evil wizard came back in another new body. Again, he had more simulacrum bodies. Just doesn't seem to run out. And they really... Somebody compared it to Doombots, and then someone else got really mad about the idea of Doombots and the idea of Doom, and then it just devolved even further because then it became a weird argument about like Marvel villains, which like really wasn't the point. And then the GM just got tired and just was like, you know what, I'm a head out. And so session's canceled.
To be clear, it was me. I was the one who bitches about the Doombots.
It's always you who bitches about the Doombots.
I hate Doom. Doom sucks. Doom is a shit villain. Fight me.
I feel like people can't even say the word Doom around you, like just the word Doom around you without you getting slightly triggered.
Dude, because I'm so sick of fucking people being like, nah, Dr. Doom's awesome. No, the fuck he isn't. He's a dork.
Listen, I don't know enough to really have this argument, but I do feel like your hate boner is perhaps a little overextended.
No. The Fantastic Four are whatever, and they've got stupid villains.
You don't like Galactus?
He's got a stupid hat.
I kind of fuck with Galactus's hat.
I don't. I like the idea of Galactus, and I've seen good versions of Galactus that I'm like, this is pretty sick. But like, I don't know. He's all right.
Yeah. Hot Marvel takes here with Isaiah.
Look, I'm sorry, but the Fantastic Four they're not batting 1,000. They got fucking Mole Man, Doom, Fin Fang Foom, and fucking...
Hey, yo, we don't be sassing my boy Fing Fang Foom.
No, don't. Shut the fuck up. No, get the fuck out of here.
It's my dog, Fing Fang Foom, no. With his weird...
I know you don't actually give a fuck about Fing Fang Foom.
With his weird human face.
We're not doing this. I'm not listening to anti-Fin Fang Foom slander. Slander that motherfucker till the cows come home. I'm not hearing it.
You refuse to hear Fin Fang Foom glazing?
No, I refuse. I'm not fucking hearing it. There's gonna be some motherfucker out here who's like, no, I really like Mole Man. I really like what he offers to the story. No, shut up. You're a nerd.
I like how you went with Mole Man. You weren't even willing to continue the Fin Fang Foom discourse.
Look, yeah, sure. He's whatever. He's just a big fucking green dragon with a dumb human face. And Doom sucks.
His face is weird as hell.
I'm not going to count the Silver Surfer because he's barely a Marvel villain. He's pretty much a protagonist at this point. I do fuck with the Silver Surfer. I like him a lot.
You like him with titties?
I do like him with titties. That's actually, so it's funny in that they're referencing, there is actually a female Silver Surfer at some point.
I know there is. It's a different person. It's not the same person.
Yes, look, I know because the fucking the fake comic nerd grognards were like, why did they make her a woman? It's like, you're a nerd. Shut up.
Yeah.
I would say meaner things if we weren't on a podcast.
That's fair. Anyway.
something Superman Indomitable's will or whatever the fuck.
That took me a second to get the joke. He's indomitable. He's indomitable. And I don't like Crypto the Super Dog because I hate Joy.
Motherfucker got no whimsy. Goddamn.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. If you know who we're referencing right there, you a real one.
All my homies slander.
all my homies slander.
And apparently, including Crispy's Tavern, apparently.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. Oh my God. Anyway, Crispy Taverns, you know what he talks about? He talks about RPGs, which is also what we talk about.
I've heard that we do talk about that from time to time.
Sometimes when we can manage it.
When we're not having me go absolutely bonkers over how much I hate Dr. Doom. Look, I could do a whole episode on Isaiah's hot takes about Marvel Comics.
I know you can. I'm aware, and they do be crispy sometimes.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah. Anyway, we can do this.
The X-Men suck.
You're gonna get me annoyed too now. Don't be doing this. Don't be doing this. I'm resisting the urge to fucking go off on you right now. Anyway,
a real X-Men enjoyer, are you?
Yeah, I mean, a subset of the X-Men. I like certain X-Men. Let's be clear. I feel like that's true of everyone who likes X-Men, though. You like certain ones.
No, look. Here's the thing.
Like Scott
I think
Summers
the
can
X-Men
gargle
suck,
dicks,
but Ileana Rasputin is my girl. Magic is my girl. She can do no wrong. She's never done any wrong except that one time. Don't worry about it.
I was gonna say I would argue she's done a lot of wrong.
All right, look, one time. It was one time.
I guess.
And she's played by objective best girl Anya Taylor-Joy. So like, it's fine.
She was played by Anya Taylor-Joy. It's true. Do you ever? You know, I didn't know. This is a stupid tangent, but I'm throwing it out there. Whatever. Who cares?
I was gonna give the most evergreen take, by the way.
What?
I was about to be like, Spider-Man is the best character with the worst fucking comic runs. But no, that's a pretty evergreen take.
I was gonna say that's not a hot take. I think most Spider-Man fans agree with you.
That is literally the coldest take in Marvel Comics.
I was gonna say I think that's pretty common that Spider-Man just gets weirdly dicked on.
Yeah.
But you know what's Magic's little dragon called again?
Lockheed.
I didn't know that little dragon was called that. So I watched season 1 of Critical Role, not understanding why he named the dragon Lockheed. I was like, that's an odd name. And then I watched the not Inhumans, the
New Mutants,
whatever the movie was, New Mutants. And I heard her say his name was Lockheed, and I was like, oh, that's a weird reference. All right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. He was like tiny dragon, just take from the X-Men character. Like, okay, I guess. Yeah.
He hung out. He was Kate Pryde's familiar for a while. Not Kitty Pryde. Kate Pryde, the new Hawkeye.
Right.
Why they would give two characters with a K first name and Pryde as a last name, I'll never fucking know. But it's fine.
Just Marvel things. All right. We're not talking about comics though, but we are talking about villains. Dun dun dun. Spooky music. Dun, 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 do the thunderclap. You know.
Oh, I was thinking the fa.
What is that from, by the way?
That's a good. I'm gonna look it up while you talk.
I feel like we should find out. Yeah, villains. Those are the OGs, which is probably nobody anymore at this point. But we did actually do 2 like villain episodes already, and I don't care. I wanted to revisit it. Also, I don't know, new ideas. Also, I think I'm talking about something slightly different. Also, I don't think I was in the original, or no, I know I wasn't. The first episode talking about villains was just Isaiah and Matt. So,
yeah.
So I wasn't there anyway. And I want to give some takes on some villain. Not takes. I stumbled into some stuff, I guess. Before we stumble our words more into some sort of coherent sentences, take a moment to hit follow or subscribe on your platform of choice. And if you're feeling generous, we have a donation link in the description.
Brother, you stumbled through the thought about stumbling through thoughts.
Yeah.
That was deep.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty. I had to take a little sip of the liquid. It whets the whistle. So, villains. This is really one of those like evergreen topics because I feel like people are constantly revisiting the well of, as a GM, how do I make my villains like fun or interesting or compelling or just like, a good time to use in my game. It just really, the debates never end. So naturally, of course, I'm now going to add on to the internet debates because why not? I will say, if I remember correctly, I'm on record, as it were, in this particular podcast, of having said that I don't feel like I do villains particularly well in my games. I think that's probably still true to a degree, but I do feel like I've perhaps just by sheer force of just trying out and doing stuff. I do think I've happened upon some better methodology and had some accidental successes in terms of making villains.
Well, actually, so why do you say that you don't have good villains?
Because up until very recently, I can't remember or name or feel like there's anything super interesting about any villains that I've come up with in my games.
Oh, interesting. You know what's funny? From a player's perspective, I disagree. I think you got a couple really memorable villains.
I can think of 2 right now.
I mean, the Inquisitor dude from Star Wars, even though he like literally showed up one time, he kind of had the Vader effect of like, oh fuck, oh shit, oh fuck, we gotta go right now.
Yeah, I feel like
Rebellion.
Rebellion was one I was thinking of, but that was an accident.
And then, yeah, but like, here's the thing: it's one of those just take credit for it because Rebellion was great.
I'm just saying.
And then, I think Baron Focus, you've hit an all-time high on that one.
Yeah, well, that was the other main one I was thinking of. But like beyond those, I can't really think of anything else. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, I've also done I've done quite a few times where the villain is not a particular person. It's sort of like it's like a larger scope thing. Like it's like I did the Dredge, and like the Dredge are more like a force of nature type villain. And like I had my Dungeon World campaign where the villain was sort of like the prophecy in a weird way. And then I had like my Stars campaign where there kind of wasn't really a villain, although that game's a little that was like a sandboxy situation, so that one's hard. There was a particular villainous character, but he definitely didn't hit. I mean, he was a nuisance and he like got a rise out of my players at the time, but I don't know that he like, I mean, shit, I can't even remember what his name was or anything. And I ran the damn game, so. And then like Blades, just I don't think there was enough time in the oven to do anything there. Yeah, I'm kind of not remembering. That's what I mean. So like, I feel like because a lot of them don't stick in my brain, I'm kind of like not hitting it that well. You know what I'm saying?
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I think you definitely. What was I gonna say? I definitely think your lack of like dedicated villains does not detract from your ability to write villains. That makes sense.
How do you mean?
Like, so again, like the Dredge circumstance, I would say just because those, how do I want to word this? It seems like you more often than not prefer to write situational villainry as opposed to like a dedicated villain. But I wouldn't say that means that you're bad at writing villains. It just seems like you prefer one style of writing antagonism over the other. You know what I mean?
I have done that quite a few times, yes. Weirdly, I don't feel like it was a conscious thing. I just feel like it's kind of kept happening. And the funny thing is, in media, I don't generally like that kind of villain. I do like a villain who's like sticks around and really antagonizes things. So I don't know why I haven't done it that way. I just sort of haven't. You know what I mean? It's kind of a weird thing. It's like a weird happenstance that I've come up with ideas that in a show I probably wouldn't necessarily like as much either. Some of it is a little bit because I'm trying to necessitate a game, right? Because part of what you need to have a campaign is to have a sort of omnipresent threat type thing going on in order to keep things, moving, like to feel like there's a tension at all times kind of situation. So some of it's somewhat out of necessity of quote unquote running, just running a game. But yeah, it's not necessarily a preference. Like one of the reasons that I really love knives in Trigun Stampede as opposed to Knives in the original Trigun anime is because Knives in Stampede is really, really present the entire series. I mean, like, doesn't he literally show up in episode, what, like 2 of Stampede, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, like the first, like, what, maybe episode 3, something like that. He shows up right at the beginning, and Knives is, like, present, and he's talked about, and he's affecting things right from the jump. So by the time you get to the end of Stampede, the, like, final confrontation has that weight and that feeling because you have backstory and he's been on screen and you've got his machinations and you've got his relationships with other villains and shit. So it's like, that's the kind of thing I like doing, but weirdly haven't done that much. Which is kind of why it's just kind of why we're talking about it now, is because I feel like I figured out how I can go about doing that and, you know, can throw out some potential wisdom to help others with this. Because really the thing I want to talk about isn't so much making good villains, quote unquote, but I want to make memorable villains, because honestly, those are two different things.
True. I'll give you a perfect example.
Okay, I mean, I also have an example, but go ahead.
I would say that, in my opinion, and this is someone who likes Legend of Korra, I'm going to put this shit on the table. I like this show. Amon, in my opinion, was not a very good villain, but he was very memorable.
What makes you say Amon was not a good villain?
Amon, in my opinion, is not a good villain because the setting did not facilitate him to be one. Because the pacing in season 1 is really quick and we don't get to see all of the anti-Bender propaganda being spread around. Right? Like, he just kind of shows up, says a bunch of shit that never gets backed up, and then does more shit. This is the same problem I have at RWBY, another show that I really like, where they're like, yes, the anti-Faunus sentiment that you never see, and it just doesn't feel like it has a lot of weight.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
For sure with Korra, there is an element of restriction there.
Show.
Well, yeah, because there's definitely a situation where Amon, you do see him doing, like, getting the revolution going, but it's quick, and it doesn't, I wouldn't say it gets breezed over, but it moves by pretty fast, and they don't have a ton of time to really linger on it. So it does kind of feel like he gives one big speech and then everyone suddenly hates Benders. That is kind of true. Funny enough,
you're not going to get Korra slander from me, but I have to call a spade and say that the pacing was not great on Amon's, like, rise.
I mean, I would say, funny enough, the new Superman movie, the James Gunn Superman, people had a similar complaint.
Yeah,
about that one. My example that I was going to give is Senator Armstrong.
Oh yeah,
because, like, Senator Armstrong in Metal Gear Rising is, by all accounts, not really a good villain. Like, I wouldn't say he's particularly well written, and I wouldn't say that he's, like, that well thought out, but he's really, really memorable to the point of being an absolute meme machine. And he's not just, like, he's memorable because he's funny, right? Because part of him is how fucking just over the top he is, but he is also memorable because he's just he's like so bombastic, and he makes such an entrance when he shows up that you just can't help but not think about him. Like, he fucking kicks the door down and just immediately announces his presence with fury. Because literally there's only one other scene. Like, you fight Armstrong in the last hour of the game. He's the final boss. There's only one other scene in that entire game where he shows up, and it's security camera footage. So you don't even, like, the main character Raiden doesn't even talk to him. It's just him watching a video of this guy, Senator Armstrong, walking around, and Raiden doesn't even really know who he is. He just knows he's a U.S. senator.
Yeah.
And, like, he's talking to the other bad guy, Sundowner, who arguably is the better written villain.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But Armstrong is really, really memorable. Nobody forgets Armstrong. I mean, Sundowner, I would say, is also quite memorable, but like, yeah, it's kind of a funny situation. So I do think that memorable point, memorable versus good, like you could have a villain who's like kind of stupid, maybe not even that interesting, but they're memorable for X, Y, or Z reasons. I mean, I'm going to get into a couple of reasons, but yeah. And sometimes people don't care if the villain's good. Sometimes people just want the memorable villain, right? Like sometimes it doesn't matter because
no, that's true. That's 100% true. I think
I don't know why. Just because
it depends on the media, right? Like if you're watching a series or you're experiencing a media through the lens of like, this is an incredibly well-crafted story. It's got deep world building. You want a good, memorable villain, right? Like Tywin Lannister in Game of Thrones is a good villain and a memorable villain.
Mm-hmm.
But in something like Metal Gear Rising, for example, you're more interested in the like, not the spectacle of the game, but like the vibes of the game, right? Like it's so unabashed anti-war rhetoric through the idea of extreme ultra-violence.
Yes.
That you're like...
And it beats you over the head with a brick about it.
Exactly, right? Like...
No subtlety.
Exactly. Does Metal Gear Rising: Vengeance have good writing? No, but it did succeed in what it was trying to do. And it succeeded through having a senator of Texas being the biggest fucking warmonger the world's ever seen.
For the virtue of social Darwinism.
Yes, for the virtue of social fucking Darwinism.
Crazy. I mean,
exactly.
The funny thing, I will say, something that I think is kind of funny about the idea of does Metal Gear Rising have good writing or not? Like, it doesn't have particularly complex or deep writing, but it's good in a way that, like, it's getting its point across. You know what we're trying to do here, and you're on board for it. You know what I mean? So, like, it's good in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's earnest writing. It's
yeah, maybe earnest. Good. Maybe earnest is the better word.
Where the writing is good is its messaging, right? The idea of like, sometimes you need a little violence to stop a lot of violence.
Right.
And like, pacifism is good, but pacifism to a fault of like passivity is bad, right? Like Raiden's whole thing is, I can't push myself. I can't go beyond. His sword is
a tool for justice.
Yeah. It's like, right, Raiden, but like, you're still killing people. Maybe you need to just get the job done. Something good soldier. Like, yeah, like, it really leads into the like, what is good actually.
I mean, it does, yes, which we don't want to get down that rabbit hole.
We're explicitly not here for, yeah.
Well, we're not here for, but also I feel like if we get down that, it's an infinite rabbit hole, you know? But yeah, so like the idea of the memorability, I also think it's worth pointing out for a tabletop game, your villain doesn't really need to be good or quote unquote well written. Like you're running the funny haha game where you and your friends pretend to be gay elves. It doesn't need to be good. It just needs to be memorable. So you talk about it and think about it. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
If you as a GM are really trying to get a message across and want to have like a deeply well-written villain, then probably just write a book, right? Like this isn't necessarily the medium for that. You could use tabletop as a medium to flex ideas, but yeah, like at the end of the day, you're still playing the funny haha theater game with your random friends. So it doesn't need and almost can't get to that next level. Like maybe I shouldn't say can't, but it's very difficult to, you know?
No, yeah, I think it is. Because the medium of role-playing games requires a lot of concession when it comes to the story, right? Like, you kind of, like, I'll give you a perfect example. you were clearly trying to set something up on Monday with Rod Wolf like injuring himself on the statue, right?
Uh-huh.
And you set that up, and several people in the party were like, nope, we have to solve this now. And while I would say, and I probably agree with you, that the better storytelling is to just let it happen, you kind of have to accept that there is a chance that the players are going to be like, no, we are solving this shit right the fuck now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which, as you can probably assume, which is why I, as Goro, was like, put some dirt on it, you'll be fine. Like, because I was like, it is objectively more interesting to see how this plays out.
Right.
Than to, kill the suspense in its crib. Like,
right.
It'll feel cooler if like Rod Wolf is being corrupted and then we have to like chop his arm off or something.
Right.
Or,
right. There's more of a drama to it if you let it stew for a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a similar thing to when video games have to make narrative concessions to justify, like the writers, came up with enough story content to have 3 zones, but the director was like, yeah, but we need to have 5 zones to make sure that we there's enough content in the game. We want to get out to like 20 hours. So we're probably gonna need like 5 zones. So can we get like a justification to add 2 more in? And inevitably, those 2 zones that get added, even if you as the player don't know exactly which 2 they are, you're probably gonna feel it. You're gonna be like, these ones aren't as important.
Yeah.
Right, it's literally what happened with Dawn Trail in Final Fantasy XIV, where 2 of the zones in the middle kind of feel like, we're padding this out a little, or at least one of the zones. Maybe I shouldn't say 2, but for sure, at least one of the zones in the middle of that expansion feel like, we're padding out the middle section in kind of a weird way here, just so they can make sure they hit their 6 zone quota.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's kind of a similar thing where the narrative concessions end up happening a little bit for the sake of the medium, because the medium just sort of works a certain kind of way. But that doesn't stop you from making them be remembered. And that's really the thing here. So I'm gonna do I'm gonna do the thing that Matt Colville always jokes about, where he's like, if I were a better YouTuber, I wouldn't do this, but I don't care, so I'm gonna do this. Where I'm gonna put the best advice at the front of the video as opposed to the back of the video, which is what you should do, right? For retention time.
Mm-hmm.
I really think number 1, if you want a villain to be memorable and last and have impact, they gotta show up more than once. They just gotta. Like, it's really, really hard to have a character, even if a bunch of other characters talk about this villain, but the players never meet them, never see them, never interact with them. It's just, there's just no emotional attachment. There's no moment there. Like, they gotta show up. They gotta be present. They gotta do something. They don't have to interact with the players. I think this is an important little caveat on this one, but they have to show up, right? They have to do something. They don't even have to physically, I should, when I say show up, they don't actually have to even physically be there, but they have to show up in their influence. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah.
You gotta feel the villain's fingers on the scale more than once. Like, it doesn't. If you have a situation where you have a villain at the end of a dungeon or something like that, and a couple NPCs talk them up like, oh, there's the evil lizard king at the end of the dungeon. You're gonna be like, okay. And then the players go through the dungeon, and then they eat the evil lizard king, and then they kill the lizard king at the end of the dungeon. He's just not gonna stick out that much because they didn't have any time to contemplate or think about or give a shit about them. And also, if they go straight into a fight at the end of the dungeon against the boss monster guy, they probably got like 3 words out of this dude. And so it's just not gonna... He's just not gonna be memorable in that way. And if you want him to be memorable, that's when you got to start reworking the plan. Now, granted, all of this that I'm talking about is assuming that you want the villain to be memorable. There are times where you just throw a villain at your players and you don't care if they really remember it or not. It's just kind of a meat weapon to throw against the players sometimes. Like, that's fine. So we're kind of operating on the assumption that, you know, you're trying to craft a memorable villain. But so like I said, when I say show up, they don't literally have to show up, right? The villain showing up more than once can mean a lot of different things. And your type of game is really gonna inform this, right? A lot of people will talk about their favorite scenes, their favorite cutscenes in Final Fantasy XIV are the cutscenes where the Warrior of Light is not present and you're just watching the current villain do villainy shit. And part of the reason of that is because it's fun to see like what their deal is, and learning what the villain's deal is a way to make them memorable. So one option you have in your toolbox, and we've been talking about this a lot recently because I'm running Fabula and Fabula tells you to do this. So ergo, I've been doing it. So ergo, we're talking about it a lot. But having those scenes where the villain is doing something and the players are not present, right? Just a cutaway to be like, what's the bad guy up to? That is the villain showing up, right? Like he is present. He's on screen, quote unquote. And he's influencing stuff. He's influencing what's going on. He's not interacting with the player characters, but the players are seeing the villain, are getting a vibe for the villain. There's a there, and it's, you know, you're laying the breadcrumbs. Anything you want to add on that one before I continue?
No, I mean, like, I've got my own example that I was going to give in a bit, but like, no, you're good.
I mean, do you want to give it now, or do you?
On the idea of like having a character show up and like. I hadn't fully prepared the thought yet, but like.
Okay. Well, no, I mean, I can kind of. I mean, I can continue.
Yeah.
Other potential options for the villain, like showing up. I mean, obviously, the most direct way to do this is to have the villain physically show up, right? The players have been hearing about the evil wizard for 3 sessions or whatever, and then the evil wizard shows up in town and strolls up on the street and is like, oh, hello, player characters, how are you doing? And starts like taunting them or whatever. And the player characters aren't necessarily going to do anything because they don't want to like murder a guy in the street in broad daylight or whatever. Or you know, you probably, if you are having a villain show up in this particular fashion, like they physically stroll up to the players, you're probably going to want to make sure that there's some kind of narrative reason they don't just immediately try to kill him right there, because I'm sure there are plenty of players who will be like, a little homicide, you say? No problem.
Violence? I can do violence.
I could do that. And then just, you know, murder a man on the street. And then all the people around him are like, why'd you murder that man? Because, of course, the civilians don't know that he's a villain, but the players are like, no, he's the bad guy. They're like, well, we don't know that, so you're going to jail. You know.
That is such a not a unique thing, but we've definitely all been here where the players are like, don't worry, civilian, we're the main characters. And you're like, yeah, I'm sorry, my guy, the civilians don't fucking know that. You just killed the guy.
Yeah, you don't have a sign over your head that says PCs.
You just murked that guy. That dude is fucking cooked now because he...
Yeah, and nobody has any context on this situation, so you just look real bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is an obvious... And a lot of people, there's lots of different ways that people have gone about this, but the idea of the villain showing up and just directly talking to the players in a situation where you know the players are not just going to fight them is a great tool. Like, that's a good one. I mean, the most common way to do this, and this is one that Matt Colville advocates a lot for, is have the level 20 bad guy show up when the players are level 1, right? Like, have homeboy rock up and be like, oh, hey there, little tiny cockroaches, how you doing? And then not do anything because the villain's like, why would I give a shit about these random heroes who think they're hot shit? They're not going to do nothing, right? And of course, part of that is the villain being, you know, hubristic and an arrogant little bastard. He's like, well, they can't do anything to me, so I'll just leave them alone. Right? That's a common villain trope of like, oh, the villain could have killed the main character, you know, 20 hours ago. Like, video games do this all the time. The bad guy could have killed the main character 20 hours ago, but they're really, really arrogant, so they just elected not to. They're like, meh, you're a little bitch, I don't need to kill you. That's a common trope. I mean, that's basically Xenos' whole thing during Stormblood. True. In 14, right? Like, there's literally a point where Xenos just beats everyone's ass, and he looks at the Warrior of Light, and he's like, you put up a nice little fight. I'm gonna let you live so you can come back and fight me again. That was kind of fun. And then he just strolls on off. And of course, that ends up not working out in his favor, or kind of does, depending on how you look at it. He does kind of get what he wants.
I was gonna say, I mean, all he wants is the run back. He definitely got that run back.
Oh, he gets a couple run backs.
Multiple of them, in fact. Yeah.
Yeah, quite a few run backs. So, like, that's a really common way to do it. Another option is, like I was saying, right? If the villain is an evil wizard guy, but he's, you know, just a regular person, the villain strolls into town and says hi to the players in broad daylight. So the player characters are like, well, shit, we can't just, like, murderate this dude right here because that's going to look real bad. But even though we know he's a bad guy, right? That's another common method. I'm
a particular fan of introduce villain, put them in a position where they can't fight him. So, like, a perfect example of this.
Well, that's what I mean about that's what I'm saying. They can't fight them if they just show up on the street because there's like a moral, like, we shouldn't do that kind of thing.
Oh, I meant it more in like in my campaign, I introduced one of my villains, and I introduced him way earlier before the alligator guy, because one of my players just rolled terribly, and I'm pretty sure she fumbled, so I wrote it so that she, like, destroyed a lot of her guild's medicine because she broke into the fucking medical tent. And their boss was like, all right, look, you got to do business with this guy. He's a piece of shit. Don't trust him as far as you can throw him. And I introduced the villain, who I made no bones about how he was a villain, but it's like, all right, you got to sign the contract, fam. Like, you're stuck with this guy for a while.
Right.
And it was great reintroducing him every time, and the characters just, like, grinding their teeth, being like, I cannot wait to kill you.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's
gonna
exactly
have to wait on that one, though.
Yeah, that's exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about, where you have some kind of justification or reason that it just wouldn't be feasible for them to take him out right here, right now. Like, they just can't for a multitude of reasons. It's funny, by the way, I was listening back on the first villains episode we did, and you brought up that example in that one too.
Yeah, look, Gariel's, I think Gariel well. and the other villain of that arc is probably the best villains I've ever written. I'm never going to live up to that hype, and I just have to accept that.
It'd be that way sometimes. Yeah, so, you know, other possible options for them showing up, but you can't necessarily do anything about it immediately, like actually physically showing up. They show up with an entourage, right? Like, you just can't, like, they rock up with a whole ass squad, and the main characters are, you know, the PCs are like, we're definitely not gonna win if we try and throw hands with him right now. And then basically similar to what Isaiah was saying, the political tension is a really good one, right? If the villain is let's going with the evil wizard. If the villain is the grand magical advisor to the neighboring kingdom, right? The players are in Kingdom A and the villain is the grand advisor to the king in Kingdom B. And then there's like a party, right? There's like a ball that the king from Kingdom A and the king from Kingdom B throw as kind of like a, they're trying to make friends. It's like an ambassador moment. We're trying to like ease the tensions. So the grand evil wizard dude is present. But if the players just start a fight during the ball and try and kill him, that's going to go very poorly. Even if they do succeed in killing him, that is going to go very poorly for the players. So there's like this political tension that they kind of have to just play nice for right now. That one's another classic trope. A favorite of mine personally is when you meet them in like a really, what would normally be a non-tension situation, and the tension immediately amps up because the villain just strolls up like, hey there, fellow kids.
Yes.
A favorite of mine. It's like the situation of main characters are having a completely normal conversation, and then one of the characters just casually puts a gun on the table and then continues talking, and it's like, oh, things just got a little more awkward all of a sudden.
I love scenes like that.
Why you got that there, bud?
It's kind of the Pulp Fiction when they shoot the guy on the couch. It's like, I'm sorry, did I break your concentration? You know what I'm talking about?
No, because I haven't. Well, yes, because I know the scene is talked about a lot. So like, yes, kind of, but no, because I haven't watched Pulp Fiction.
So the bit where they break into the apartment, they're talking to that guy Brett about the briefcase, and as Brett's trying to like talk his way out of the situation, Sam Jackson just shoots the guy on the couch in like an act of completely random mega violence to throw Brett off.
Yeah,
and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, did I break your concentration?" It's just the dude bleeding out on the couch because he took a 9mm to the chest.
Nice.
Yeah, stuff like that.
I should go back and watch. I should go back and actually watch that movie at some point. But yes, that kind of. So that's as a slight recap. Option number one, the villain shows up, quote unquote, via a scene that the player characters are not necessarily present for. Option two, the villain actually physically shows up and engages with the player characters in a non-violent situation, in a situation where they can't just go straight to murder hoboing, because that's always what players want to do, obviously. Option number three is the villain shows up through their minions, through their people, through their connections, right? If you have a villain who's, maybe the villain's like some nobleman of the kingdom that the player characters live in, and they can't get access to him because they're not nobility, they're just guy McDudes, they're murder hobos. Maybe by the end of the game that might be different, but at least at the beginning. And so they don't see or interact with the villain, but they constantly run into problems that the villain is causing via his connections. So, or her connections, or their connections, anything in between, really. So, like, for example, the villain, again, going with the high noble, the nobleman angle, there's a situation where the local town guard need the player's help with something, blah, blah, blah. This one gang has been getting really out of hand, blah, blah, blah. Do that arc, do that adventure. Turns out, this gang that suddenly started to, get more territory and cause trouble is because the villain was funding them, right? Like, they were getting help from this nobleman. And then the players are like, okay, so now we have a name, and now like his presence is felt. And then again, down the road, there's some string of, there's some string of murders that happens. Turns out the villain, summoned a demon and is having the demon kill people on his behalf for some sort of evil plan. And then further down the road, turns out he's employing people to work on this evil ritual thing that he's trying to do to eventually take over the kingdom completely. Like continually having like other characters tied to the villain connect into them, and then maybe the other, and then also maybe those minions of the villain have a picture of the villain. Maybe they have a note written by the villain, so the players can hear some stuff from in the villain's words. Maybe the villain gets described, and then the players see him from a distance in another scenario, right? So again, not necessarily direct interaction, but the villain is still showing up, quote unquote. There's still a presence, there's still a feeling. And that will, again, going back to our core thesis statement here, that will help to make them memorable, because the players are be like, God damn it, this jackass Baron von Diggly-Deutsch, we keep hearing his fucking name over and over again. He keeps causing all these fucking problems. Basically that method is the JoJo Part 3 maneuver, where just everything is Dio's fault.
That's kind of what I had going in my first campaign as well. The big villain of the first arc, other than Alligator Man, was the Bandit King thing. Mm-hmm. And essentially the way I did it was in the one shot that preceded the campaign by about 2 years, I was like, yeah, we're getting unusual bandit activity. They're getting more organized. It's a little distressing. And even at the start of the campaign, I brought that back up, being like, well, you guys have to go do this thing because there's, for some reason, higher bandit activity. And the players were like, oh, okay, that's whatever. And they did their first big mission where they got to the giant moving city, a la Immortal Engines thing. Uh-huh. They fight off a subset of that bandit army, and the leader of one of the bandit clans is like, oh, we got an army coming. We have a master of chains. He's going to do all this crazy shit. And the players are like, oh, that's distressing. But they don't really do anything about it, and they get really wrapped up in doing the Gariel stuff.
Right.
And because they get so wrapped up in that, they're not keeping track of the bandit stuff via the optional missions. Then, when that guy kicks their door in and kills one of their buddies, and as the fight is ending, they see this guy covered in chains and this big metal helmet. They're like, oh, that's that guy. Oh shit, that's the guy.
They hit you with the surprise Pikachu face when their friend dies.
Yeah. So they were like, oh, that's that guy. Oh shit. And then they do all this stuff. They launch a raid. They end up helping kill that guy.
Right.
And then they find out that it's actually not that guy. That guy is a body double. And the real guy is bringing an army down from the north. And they're like, oh my God. It was a good time.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's exactly that. I mean, as much as I have my complaints about, actually, you know what? Here, let's not shit on JoJo Part 3. Let's talk about a JoJo part I like a lot. Let's talk about Part 6 instead.
Okay.
Right. The reason I think Poochie is so good and probably the best villain in JoJo, in my personal opinion, is because Poochie is just ever present through the entirety of Part 6, and it's because the main character is in a prison, and the main villain is the guy who runs the fucking prison. So you feel him all the time. You're constantly putting up with his bullshit. He also makes an excellent entrance at the beginning of the show when he fucks up the main character's dad, right? Which is a really good, oh shit, this guy's got a big dick energy.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of a vibe. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. You're the feeling their presence the whole time. The villain showing up more than once can mean any of those things, but they gotta show up in some sense. Their presence must be known. But, that's all well and good when you're talking about a villain that you planned out. What about the surprise villains? Sometimes you really just gotta roll with the surprise villain. You might not have expected random NPC Jim to become a really memorable villain, but sometimes they just will be. And I think there's a muscle as a GM that you really got to train, that when you sniff it, when you get a whiff of that surprise villain is starting to be born, you just gotta jump on it as quick as you can. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I call it the pivot.
Yeah,
you have
yeah,
character
it's a
who you
pivot.
thought was Guy McDude, and you weren't planning on him being the villain, and you had a cooler villain in mind, but the players are really attached to that villain. You got to pivot.
You got to pivot.
Make him make it so he was the real mastermind the whole time, and he was just moonlighting as a minion, or doesn't matter how you have to justify it. You got to pivot.
You got to latch on to that opportunity, because effectively your players are giving you a golden ticket that says, we're interested in this thingy, do more of this, and you got to take that ticket and go, all right, we're doing more of that. You got to punch that sucker quick. I do think it's worth mentioning that doesn't necessarily mean you have to throw out your original plan. It just means you need to rework the plan in such a way that the surprise villain fits in better, right? Okay, I didn't think you as the GM, you have a boss of a dungeon, and for whatever reason, the players go to fight this dungeon boss and they get their ass beat, right? Like, you didn't think they were gonna, but for whatever reason, they get their shit rocked in that fight. And then you as the GM are like, oh, okay, well, I wasn't planning on them like getting, whopped here. I'm gonna have the villain pull out or not kill them for some reason, right? Like, I'm gonna have him kind of pull back. And in that moment, if you do that, if the players get their ass beat by the dungeon boss, and then the dungeon boss is like, you know what? I'm done with you silly little mortals. I have better things to do, and then leaves. And then the player's response is, ooh, we're gonna get that motherfucker. Ooh, I swear to God, we're gonna get his ass. Then you as the GM immediately have to go, okay, I was gonna just get rid of him. I'm not getting rid of him anymore. He needs to stick around now. Whatever I gotta do, he's gotta stick around, right?
Okay, so I got a question for you. Was that reaction me with my desire for salty runbacks on Rebellion?
Yeah, oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because the second he killed my character, I was like, ooh, you motherfucker, I'm coming back.
yeah. Well,
I'm here for literal salty runbacks.
Rebellion for me really was like the penultimate, or not the perfect example of this, because I just totally misused the word penultimate there.
Yeah, penultimate is the one before the ultimate.
Yeah. I don't know why. Anyway, yeah, because he's the perfect example, because you as players engage this character that I was like, okay, my original idea with Rebellion was to sort of to seed a plot hook, or maybe not even a plot hook. I was sort of giving you guys some world building context via mission, right? Because for me personally, as a GM, I always, if I do a bunch of world building stuff, right? If I write up a bunch of shit, my objective is to contextualize as much of that world building shit as I possibly can with stuff that I'm going to have the players actively do, right? So I was kind of setting up with Rebellion. I was like, I'm going to show the players that there's a bit of like a class disparity problem going on in this city, right? There's an issue of the city touts itself as being really, really fair, but it actually has this monetary and racism problem that they're kind of just ignoring. And Rebellion is like a symptom of that, right? But when the fight happened, he like you said, he killed your character, and then by extension, he also he just kind of shocked the group. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna have him run away now, because he has the ability to get out of here. I'm gonna have him get out of here. My initial thought was, I'll keep him on the back burner as like maybe a something, but then as that session went on and then concluded, I could clearly tell, I was like, oh, the players are kind of invested in this moment that happened, because it kind of shocked everyone, right? It shocked me as a GM because I didn't expect it to happen the way it did, and it kind of threw you guys off as players. So I was like, oh, okay, let me latch onto this, and I got to figure out a way to make him more important. And so I did. I kind of ramped up his importance, because his original objective, his original position as like a character was just going to be kind of a shit disturber, but not necessarily a major mover and shaker. I was like, all right, he is now leveled up to major mover and shaker. He's a rank increase. And then by extension of that, I was like, all right, well, if I'm going to take the time to really flesh him out more, I need to have a justification for why the players are going to hang around him a little bit more. And that's where I came up with the whole idea of going into that, what did I call it? What did I call it? The other dimension,
oh God.
What did I call it? Fuck.
I don't remember.
I don't remember either, but you know what I'm talking about. That was where I came up with the idea of one of your characters traveling around with him in this other dimension, putting you in a situation where you have to cooperate with him, otherwise you're screwed. That was where that idea kind of was birthed out of, because I was like, all right, well, if I'm going to put in all this effort, I need to kind of extend, like, his importance needs to feel worth it, so I need to do more with it. The Manatide. That's what I call it. I need to like do more with him. And so, yeah, basically it was this, he was a surprise villain to me. Like, he was a surprise to me because I didn't expect the reaction I got, but the reaction worked. And so I was like, okay. And then I latched onto it basically as fast as humanly possible. And yeah, so that was why Rebellion turned into a thing. And he was only a villain for a short period of time, to be honest. Because I ended up just making him a good guy later.
Yeah.
But that's because I kind of felt like, I just felt like it made sense in that way, that you guys as players kind of were putting the work in. So it just kind of fit to have him become a good guy.
Yep. I had the exact same thing happening in my campaign. In my first campaign, where I had this idea for like a boss fight, and like it was an important boss fight, generally speaking, to Gennaro's character. And it was going to be like a quick, fast, they fight him. Maybe they can convince him to be a good guy. It was his brother.
Yes, I remember you talking about this. Yeah.
And not only was Gennaro immediately like, bro, I met you 2 weeks ago, but I will fuck your entire shit up. But I don't want to. I really don't want to. Please don't put me in this position. Like, obviously his character made a much better argument than that, but
right.
Because Rip cared so much in that moment about like getting through to his brother, I was like, okay, I wasn't intending for this to be a thing he can roll on, but there really is no other better place for this. And like, I can't just throw out this really good roleplay, right? Like, if I don't reward this, then what's the point?
Right. You got to do something with it.
Yeah. So I let him roll on it, and he rolls it, like Paladin's dice curse always will be. He gets absolute dog shit rolls until he needs it the absolute most.
Until he needs it really bad.
And then he becomes a god of dice.
Yeah.
And he rolled like a 24 or whatever, and he needed a 23 to succeed. And I was like, yeah, fuck it.
You're like, goddamn.
I got nothing.
Goddamn.
Yeah. And even then, it was cool because, you know, he was friendly to the players, but he was still ultimately working with one of the big bads.
Right.
And just because the players were cool with him doesn't mean that their boss or society or all the other guilds or even like the party's friends, right? Like, they were all like, look, I get this is your brother, but fuck this guy, bro. Like, what are we doing?
He did some fuck shit, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then ultimately it was really cool to see that, you know, he was like, okay, look, I'm going to go undercover. You're just going to have to trust that I'm not going to sell you all out. Like, you're just going to have to give me that on faith.
Right.
And if I'm right, or you're right, if you're right and you give me this on faith and it all goes according to plan, then I can lowball the numbers of your group to my boss, and maybe, hopefully, he'll
get cocky.
Yeah, he'll undercommit his forces. But you really got to take it on faith. And Rip and the party were like, look, yeah, he tried to stab us in the back, but he's been with us since then, and he's fed us everything we've asked him. Any piece of information we got, he just gives it freely. Like, that's got to be worth something. And like eventually, like, they bought it. He got betrayed by like the evil bandit king, and like they killed half his crew, which was interesting to see. Like, people they were just starting to like, half of them just die horribly. Right. Like the whole heads mounted to spikes thing, and they're like, oh, yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. I mean, knowing when to sniff out that opportunity and latch onto it. Like I said, it is a muscle you have to train, and definitely early GMs in particular are absolutely going to miss those moments, and you're going to be disappointed, but use those moments that you missed as good lesson to be like, oh, okay, I should have done that here.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of going back to our thesis statement of making your villains memorable, the surprise villain is pretty much memorable by default, right? Because something happened where that character was not intended to be a big deal, and then the events of the game made them a big deal, and the fact that they were made into a big deal by a random event is just automatically kicks them into that echelon of being memorable, like pretty much for free. And unfortunately, the one thing that really sucks about the surprise villain situation is you as a GM can't plan for it because it's a surprise to you, right? Like,
yeah,
it's not just a surprise for the players. It's also a surprise for you as the GM because it was not your original intention. So unfortunately, you can't bank on it, but it does kind of almost always happen. So as long as you're looking out for it, usually you can capitalize on it.
It's funny that you say that because it is happening right now. There was for Siffy's story, yeah, for her like personal stuff, I had written initially a different character, and she doesn't listen to the podcast, so it's fine. It was gonna be her cousin, right, who like got her sister killed out of an act of like selfishness, basically being like, I'm not going down there, that's a fucking death trap, she's gonna have to die on her own, right? But she got really attached to the internal mechanics of her own royal house and like the backstabbing and like the Dune-esque, plans within plans.
Right.
So I was like, oh, it'll be more interesting rather than it just be a boring old, like, I just didn't want to do it. You know what I mean? It was a targeted thing to like make way for personal political machinations. And it's all because she like got really attached to the military command structure from her home, right? Her home planet. And she hates them. Like, and she loves to hate them, but her character hates them. I was like, well, I have to make them more culpable, because if they're just guys, if they're just like good soldiers and like, yeah,
if there's not enough of a reason to hate them.
Yeah, right. Like sometimes a mix-up is good. Sometimes it's like, oh no, actually we were just as innocent as you were in this. We're just as confused as you are. But there's got to be a payoff, right? Like if they were innocent, someone else in the organization was guilty. It can't just be they were innocent and nothing, right?
Right.
Yeah. You have to be willing and ready to understand that, like, you're not writing a book. All that prep you did, sometimes you gotta just pivot. Like,
sometimes you gotta hit the mean pivot.
Yeah. You may not wanna. I mean, I didn't.
It sort of kind of happened with Baron Focus in the Fabula game too, where
had a feeling.
It's not exactly the same situation, right? Because I did intend for him to be a villain, and I did intend for him to kind of get under you your skin as players, but the degree to which he bothered you guys as players is the part that I didn't quite expect. You know what I mean? Like, for whatever reason, however I framed the situation, you guys as players really latched on to hating him more than I expected. And because you latched onto it so hard, I was kind of like, all right, I got to keep this in the back of my pocket. And I wasn't sure. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to use him or what I'm going to do with it, but I'm like, I have to do something. So I just kind of left myself a note and was like, I'll think about it. And then I just saw the opportunity with the Lich situation, and I was like, yeah, this will work. And it just, yeah, again, I just capitalized on it. But like I said, I did intend for him to be a villain, but the degree of villain, the degree of like, oh, fuck this guy, I was surprised by. So I guess the lesson there is sometimes the surprise will come from a little bit of an unexpected angle, because again, you can come up with all sorts of cool ideas as a GM, and then your players just get really attached to Scrimbolo Bimbolo the Goblin Dingolo, and just you just got to go with it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, all this effort you put into crafting them this amazing half angel NPC who's a daughter of a chosen one who you really thought they were going to care about, and they're like, no, we like the goblin better. Then you got to go, all right, the goblin's important now.
Oh yeah, dude. Need I say energy. More than fucking Barker? Like,
right? Yeah, it's the same thing.
Random NPC bandit I was ready for them to slit the throat of became their best buddy, and frankly turned into a PC in his own right in a different campaign. Mm-hmm. Like,
yep, yeah. Those golden moments, you really got to seize them when they present themselves.
Yeah.
All right. So then, extension of that. So we have, you want to make sure the villain shows up more than once. If you have a villain who catches you by surprise as a GM and ends up being more relevant than you thought, seize the moment. If you're operating with your intended villain and it's working and the players are hating them the way they should, sometimes, not even sometimes, having the villain get away and reappear multiple times, it might cause some player annoyance. It will cause frustration, probably. But it's really worth it in the end. Like, most of the time, usually, there are exceptions, having that villain, like, the players fight him or engage with him in some way, or them, and the villain gets away. Now, get away could mean a lot of things, right? I'm not only talking about a fight necessarily, but a fight is the most common scenario. But the villain gets away after the players have engaged them somehow. Like, doing that a few times, it's probably worth it. Even if in the moment your players seem a little mad, seem a little pissy, it's okay. It's probably still worth it, because when they show back up, it's going to be such a great response of like, ooh, that motherfucker. You know what I mean? Like, it's really hard to argue with that sensation, that feeling of like, ooh, this son of a bitch is back. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. As Isaiah puts it, the urge for the salty run back is strong.
It is. And like, there are right and wrong ways of doing it, right? Because there are ways that you can achieve it and the players aren't like the characters are salty, but the players are not.
Yeah.
If the bad guy has the, like, portal opens up beneath him and blips away, that can work. But doing it the way that Josh did it, where we killed that guy, that dude fucking died and was resurrected. That feels better because it doesn't feel like we failed. It feels like he wants the salty run back, and now we want the run back in return, right?
It feels like it feels like a change in the game state also. Like, so just to give the full context for what Isaiah is talking about here, the character Baron Focus in our Fabula campaign, the first time the players fought him, they fought him and then he escaped. In Fabula Ultima, the villains have a resource called Ultima Points, and one of the things they can do with an Ultima Point is escape a scene no matter what. So that first time they fought him, he did escape straight up. And then they re-engaged him like 1 or 2 sessions later, and they killed him. They have since recently seen him again because he was resurrected as a vampire by a lich. And yeah, it doesn't feel like a failure on the player's part because they did do the thing, and it changes the status quo. You know, the villain just kind of disappearing doesn't necessarily change things very much. The villain coming back because of some sort of weird evil necromancy, you're sort of establishing new things, right? You're keeping the momentum moving forward. You're changing what's going on. But I will say, sometimes just having them run away is also totally valid. Like, they get away and then they show back up and like, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, because ultimately what you're doing is letting your players get attached, and getting attached is then makes that final victory like the sweeter one. But you do have to, the trick is you do have to give them the final victory at some point, right? You can't deny it eternally, because that
it's true
doesn't
so something to keep track of.
It doesn't feel
right. Like, yes, sometimes you can have your character run away, but it has to feel earned, right? And like Fabula, you literally get a resource that lets your character, your villains run away. But the game also says, don't have every villain run away, right? Like, when you find villains that you think work, have them come back, but not every villain can or should be a recurring villain, right? Because then there's no point.
And not every villain's worth it.
Yeah.
Like, if you can tell that the players were not that attached, not that invested in that particular villain, then yeah, it's probably not worth it to have them pull the runaway maneuver, because they're just not, when they show back up, it's not gonna hit. You know, like, you need them, when they reappear, you need them to really, like, they need to feel it. You know, like, it needs to feel like, it needs like it needs a sense of payoff, I guess is really the way to phrase it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's a villain they were not initially that attached to, and then they run away and then they reappear, instead of feeling like, finally our rematch, your players are going to be like, this jackass again. Great. Fantastic. You know, like, the response you want is, yes, an honorable rematch. The response you don't want is, this motherfucker again? Seriously? Right? That's bad.
Yeah.
Right? Part of the reason that I try not to be MCU pilled all the time and constantly reference the MCU, but it's a good example in this case, so whatever. Part of the reason the fight in Endgame between Captain America and Thanos feels so fucking good is because when Thanos beat Cap's ass and then got away, when he comes back in Endgame, there's that feeling of like, ooh, we're gonna settle the score this time, motherfucker. Like, there's that sensation of satisfaction. And the reason there's that feeling of satisfaction is because Thanos got an entire movie for you to give a shit about this guy, right? Because Infinity War really is the Thanos movie. Thanos is the main character of that movie. You got a whole ass movie to give a shit about him. So when he rolls back around in Endgame, you're like locked in, you're latched on, you're invested. That's also why, side note, when Thor, I mean, spoilers for Endgame, I guess, but like when Thor kills him in the very beginning, part of the reason that doesn't feel good is because Thanos just kind of gave up, right? He wasn't really being a villain in that moment. He wasn't trying to do anything. He just kind of let it happen. And so there's this sense of like dissatisfaction. So when he's back to villain mode at the very end of the movie, you're like, ah, yes, now the proper throwdown that we should have had. That's the feeling you want to hit. And again, a lot easier done in a movie or a book, obviously, because the author can control these things. But that's what you want to aim for in a tabletop sense. Whatever you got to do to try and make that happen, go for it. And sometimes the game will help you, right? Some games will give you mechanics or methods or just general advice on how you can do that sort of thing. But sometimes the game won't help you. And, like D&D does not help you with this problem. So you got to kind of figure out how you want to go about it yourself. But take the time to really think about how you're going to do it. Like that planning, that upfront strategy investment is worth it. And again, it's okay if your players are a little annoyed at you when the villain does run away. They can be a little mad. That's okay. Let them stew a little. You can let them stew. That's okay. A little stewing never hurt nobody.
Yeah.
I guess, huh?
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah.
The secret is don't let them stew too long, I guess, or too much. It's a delicate balance.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is like if players are a little mad, that means they care. But if characters are like over it mad, like, dude, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's when
you've gone too far. Yeah.
Don't overcook your stew. Cook it low and slow.
Yes.
Forward. And then my last big one for really making that memorable villain, and I think everyone kind of knows this one, but I still think it's worth bringing up either way. Your villain needs a big personality element or thing about them that stands out. They need something that makes you think about them with a singular mention of that trait. The classic example for me personally, the one that popped into my brain, is Darth Vader's voice. Right? You hear that breathing sound and you hear that like low James Earl Jones, fucking, I'm not going to say what I was about to say. But James Earl Jones' voice,
yeah.
I don't know. It's fine. James Earl Jones' voice. And with that breathing apparatus noise, you hear that breathing sound and you're instantly like, ah, shit, Darth Vader, right? Like there's no ambiguity who it is or who you're thinking about. You immediately think of Darth Vader and you can hear Darth Vader's voice in your head as soon as you hear that noise and you hear that low tone of his. Give your villains that thing, whatever it needs to be. It might be a visual thing. It might be a personality thing. It might be a voice thing. It might be a particular like action they do, but you need that like standout thing, that really sticks. Sometimes you can have a couple of them, but you need at least one. Going back to JoJo, because I don't know, JoJo. Dio's weird fucking vampire noises, they stick in your brain. Like something about that weird hiss thingy he does, you're just like, yeah, that's Dio. Like, you want to have that for your villain in your tabletop game because that one little trait can just you remind your players, like, you know, it's the guy who does the thing, and your players go, oh yeah, that guy, yeah, okay, yeah, I know who you're talking about, and it immediately just locks it back in their brain. You know, like you want that immediate recognition. Another good example with Dio is Zeraldo, right? You hear
I was
that.
thinking the Muda Muda.
The Muda Muda is another. Yeah, Dio has quite a few of them, but the Muda Muda, Zeraldo, his weird vampire hiss, like all that shit. You hear any of those things, and you're like, that fucking Dio. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. You kind of want the meme. You want your villain to have the meme, like whatever it is. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
I think it's this is the cliche thing, right? It's like, yes, having a over dramatic villain who's got a one weird like quirk. Yeah, is that cliche? Yeah, it's a cliche for a fucking reason. It works.
Yeah, I mean, it's a trope that hits. It gets the point across. And again, cliche doesn't have to mean bad, right? Like cliche does not inherently mean bad. It's like a shorthand tool, and especially when you're dealing with tabletop where you don't necessarily have the time or the ability to do something like a book where you can, you know, really stew on a character. That's just not going to happen because it's a tabletop game. Everyone has to be, you know, you want everyone to be interacting and playing in roughly equal measure. If you as a GM just spend 45 minutes stewing on your villain guy, you know, it's going to come off as you just playing with yourself and not in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, you got to have that cliche thing is there because it gets that punch. It gets that immediate snap, you know, using recent.
One of my villains is a perfect example of this, and it's not the villain I want it to be.
Okay.
But there is a sort of anti-hero, maybe villain character who is a relative of their maybe dead handler, and the whole thing is he's just a cowboy. He's just got the thick Texas accent, and he fucking smokes cigars. He's got a cowboy hat, and like, yeah, he's basically space mecha cowboy. But at this time, any time that the players are like, you know, and like you see a familiar face and you hear the "going on, gunslinger," and you're like, oh, fuck, it's a Newman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they're like, that's Newman. There he is.
Yeah. And that's not necessarily you're not even talking about a villain, but yeah, it works for, it can work for any kind of character you want. You know, we're talking about villains in particular, but yeah, this one really extends to fucking everybody. And it's just handy, especially because, again, you know, we're operating in the space of tabletop needs to be a little bit snappier, a little bit punchier in that regard, because you can't, because you're telling a story collaboratively, right? If you imagine it like you're sort of passing the narrative baton, when the narrative baton is passed back around to you as the GM, actually, it's not even really a GM thing. When the narrative baton is passed to you as a player or a GM, it doesn't matter. You need to make the most of your time as quick as you can, and part of the way you do that is doing things like snappy, quick cliches, or like a little bit tropey, I'm doing this thing, because you're trying to share the quote unquote screen time as much as you can. Whereas in something like a TV show, you know, a TV show writer doesn't need to give an equal amount of screen time to every character, right? They can give as much screen time they want to whichever characters they like best. They don't have to spread it around. At the table, you kind of have to spread it around when you're playing tabletop with each other. So the snappiness, that punchiness, helps get the point across while also trying to spread that screen time around and pass the baton as much as you can. Because nobody wants a player who's the main character hog, but nobody wants a GM who's the main character hog either, right? Like, Nobody wants to play in a game where a GM just talks to themselves for an hour about how fucking cool they are, right? That's not fun. That's also not a game, right? Like, nobody wants to do that. Cut that shit out. It's boring. Stop it. You also look a little weird and cringe when you do shit like that.
Very true.
Right? Like the GM who like very clearly just wants to expound about how cool this character they came up with is, it's a little cringe, bro.
I had one of those in my own campaign where I was like, like their boss, right? I was like, he's gonna be maybe dead soon. I'm retiring this character that I care quite deeply about. I'm just gonna let them be cool for a couple minutes. And I told the players, I'm like, I'm gonna get really filleting in about a couple seconds. You're just gonna have to put up with me.
Yeah. If you're just gonna let me self-indulge,
it was funny because they were like, "Oh damn, he's pretty cool actually," and I was like, "Appreciate you."
Thank you. Game recognized game.
Yeah.
And I do want to mention too, this idea of having a particular personality trait or a particular element to their character that stands out. That doesn't mean it has to be bombastic, right? Like, making it bombastic is sometimes easier, but it doesn't have to be super over. Like, if the tone of your game is the Witcher series, right? Like, if you really want to hammer in on the tone of the Witcher books, then yeah, you're probably not gonna have a character who, I don't know, talks exclusively in soliloquies or something. Like, that's a little much. But you can have a character like Dandelion who's overly flowery, right? They have this flowery element to the way that they speak, and it doesn't need to be too much. It just needs to be present enough that the player is immediately like, oh yeah, this guy, you know, the guy who talks a little too flowery. Or another trait for Dandelion is the guy who gets a lot of bitches, right? So like for me, what I did with the Baron, I didn't overplay it because tonally it would feel off if I did, but the Baron is just that kind of, he's that sleaziness, that like kind of greasy, noble, like, I get to do what I want, I'm just better than the peasants. Like, I tried to kind of get that element of his personality across and be kind of the foremost part of him. That sleaze to him is really what I wanted to hammer home, and it didn't need to be, it wasn't like every other sentence he was complaining about poor people. It was just, you got that feeling from him, like he was always looking a little down, talking a little down. Like, it was just that ever-present sense of his sensibilities, his political opinions, I guess. But yeah, so it doesn't need to be super bombastic. It can be super bombastic, obviously, if you want to go, you know, if you want to go Senator Armstrong, hoorah, military is fucking sick and war is good, you can do that, but it doesn't have to be that. You know, it just needs to be, it needs to be a key linchpin that you always come back to for the character, like a touchstone.
Well, so you know what you do have as something in the medium of tabletop games that I think is overlooked a lot?
What?
Music. It is so easy to make a character memorable, and I have done this by giving them a theme song.
A soundtrack, yeah.
Anytime that character shows up, play that track, and the players will automatically be like, there he is.
Yeah,
that son of a bitch, it's him.
Yeah.
It's the Imperial March, right? Like,
yeah. 100%.
You know shit's cooked when you hear the dun 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 dun. You're like,
yeah,
it's something terrible is about to happen.
The bad guys have arrived.
Like, and this works, and like this works for everybody. This isn't just a villain thing, right? On the inverse, anytime Johnny Silverhand does a thing and you hear fucking that haunting cello for Rebel Path play, you're like, Johnny's about to say some absolutely
he's about to drop some bangers.
My man's about to be put on a list.
Yep.
Yeah, it does a really good job at getting the players to care and making characters, scenes, events really memorable. Put things to music. That's why every major VTT has one, and if you don't have those, you can use a bot on Discord or whatever app, because fuck Discord, I guess. But like, you can do that, and you should do it. And it makes it so that you don't have to worry about a character being super bombastic and being super high energy. Sometimes just having a really haunting song play when, you know, fuckface McGee shows up to do some evil shit. That's all you need.
Yeah. Again, it's that linchpin, it's that touchstone, right? As long as you can always come back to that touchstone, it will help lock that villain or any character into your player's mind. It's yeah, I don't know. There's probably a word. There's probably like a writing, like not style, but a writing. What's the word I'm looking for? Like a lesson in this. There's probably a technique that is what I'm talking about. But yeah, give that core touchstone point. Yeah, I think that's all. I think that's all I got. I feel like if you can apply at least a few of these elements to the villain, they will stick in your player's brain. I mean, if I were to say any of them is absolutely mandatory, I would say they gotta show up more than once. That first one, I think that is the most mandatory. If you want a villain to be memorable,
that's the lowest level.
Yeah, they need to be present more than just the one time they fight him. Like that one's like a non-negotiable. The other ones, I think you can sort of mix and match and pull in and out as you go. Anything you want to add on the tail end?
No, yeah, I mean, make sure they show up at least one other time, hopefully more.
Hopefully more. I think 3 is kind of the magic number.
It is, yeah. And to all the people who are like, but my players are going to just kill them. Yes, follow one of our other episodes where we talk about having a cutscene. Put them in a position where they can't. Put them in a position where fighting is not the option.
Is not, and
have him show up early.
Fighting is a detriment. Even.
Yeah. These are all tools that you can utilize to make sure that a character is memorable. And a lot easier than you think. You know, there's always the meme of like, but my players keep killing them so quickly. It's like, right. Yeah. Well, I hate to be that guy, but you're putting them in a position where they can be killed so easily.
Well, and also you got to understand on the player side of the table, that's kind of what they're supposed to do, right? Like their instinct is this is what we're supposed to do. Is the bad guy shows up, we fight the bad guy. That's kind of how most tabletop games frame it. So you have to break out of that framing if you want to do something different. And if you don't do anything different, then yeah, that's how your players are going to respond because they've been kind of trained to do so. Mm-hmm. And it's the same. The funny thing is, GMs, people who GM more than they play, will complain about this particular behavior. They'll be like, oh, players just always go straight to murderate the guy. And then that same GM will be a player and will do the exact same shit. They'll do the same thing because it's an instinct. It's how I'm supposed to do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They'll jump straight to it because it's just it's a cultural thing. It's like that's how we do this. That's how we play this particular kind of game. I hope that was useful information. It is information I have gleaned by playing and just sort of observing some habits, some accidental habits in some regard. So I think it'll probably, I don't know, help somebody out. That has been us. Say hi to your mom for me and leave us a follow on the social medias.
I like that. I like say hi to your mom for me. That's a good one.
That's it. Bye-bye.